It's almost like Groundhog Day at our house. Get up and try to make the day like the day before if it was a good day. You're making breakfast, making lunch, watching SpongeBob at a certain time, going to bed at a certain time. We kind of live in a bubble because it's this routine. And I don't mind that routine. I don't get bored with that routine. I look forward waking up and seeing my son every morning. I'll be 67 in a few days. Every day, I get this person who smiles at me, gives me a hug all the time. That's enough to get me through the day.
Welcome to Live Well, Be Wise, the podcast that deepens the well-being conversation, finding the gold in your stories of hardship and the connection to wise action and lived wellness.
We are your hosts, Dorinda Carlson
and Kari Lyons-Price. Today, we warmly welcome Frank Cohn, a Wenatchee man who, with humor and heart, tells us what it's like to have a son with developmental disability. Evan is now 37 years old, and Frank has been his primary caregiver. You'll hear what it was like to get the news hours after Evan was born at 3 pounds, 2 ounces, and 11 weeks early. We believe he has Down syndrome. You won't hear Frank talk about sacrifice or being a hero. Instead, you'll hear about a man who faced his "my life feels like it's over" moment with courage and grace. He is human, and we discuss the fallible aspects of parenting a child with special needs, when anger feels like a betrayal and OCD behaviors aren't something to be solved. Frank is humble, kind, and humorous, a soul with whom we had the great pleasure to talk to about his life. We hope you enjoy this episode for someone that we believe is truly a model of living well and being wise. Cool. We want to welcome formally into the studio today Frank Cohn, a friend and a neighbor here in the Wenatchee Valley. We're so glad to have you here today, Frank.
Thanks very much.
Why don't you kick us off by just maybe sharing a little bit about your history here, how long you've lived here, who you are in the world?
I was born here in Wenatchee, and I've lived here all my life, except for when I was in college in Ellensburg. And then I met a girl there, my wife Patty, at college. And when we got done, she was moving back to Los Angeles, and I moved down to Los Angeles for 2.5 years. And then we moved back. And I've been here, and I've worked sporadically through all that time.
And you have a little bit of special history here with your dad.
My father was Judge Cohn. He was the court commissioner and then judge pro tem, and then he got nominated and he became judge, and he was judge for 14 years, I think.
What decades were that?
That must have been the 80s and the 90s.
Okay. Nice. So you have 2 kids.
2 kids. Erin is my youngest, our youngest, and she lives in Colorado now. She works at the university. And Evan is our oldest, and he's been home with us for 37 years.
Tell us a little bit about Evan and what it's like to be his dad.
Sure. Evan was born at the University of Washington. He was born on February 12th, 1989. His due date was on May 4th, 1989. So he was 11 and a half weeks early, which obviously posed a lot of issues and everything. So,
and this was your wife's first child, too.
This was this was our first child, yes. Mm-hmm. And so he was born, and I remember being in the room. They were trying to stop labor, obviously, because she was preterm. The doctors would come in. They would say, "We're going to try this." Not surprisingly, the nurses came in and said, "You're having that baby today. It's coming." And so it was always kind of a running joke that we always kind of relied on the nurses more than the doctors.
Yeah, right.
So, but anyway, and he did come that day. I remember being in the room and it's just a doctor and an anesthesiologist, and there's just the 4 of us in the room, and it's kind of really intense. And then all of a sudden I look up, and there's a whole bunch of people on the wall, all in gowns and everything. And that was the NICU team, the neonatal intensive care unit team.
They were ready.
They were ready. They were ready there. Evan was born, and I saw him for about a half a second. And then the team came over and just whisked him away. And then they took Patty back to the room. This is 37 years ago, so it might be a little fuzzy, but I remember pretty distinctly. And so we're there, and he's alive. As far as we know, he's doing well. We don't get a lot of information, and
That must have been hard to
it
wait.
it was intense. We're very emotional at this point. Patty's in the room, and about 2 hours later, I look out into the hallway from Patty's room, and I see the doctor waving me out. And so I go out into the hall, and my head is hanging low. I'm expecting to hear that he has died because he's so early. And the doctor looks at me, and she pulls my hand, she looks at my hand, and then she wants to see the top of my head, and she looks at my eyes, and I finally say, "What's going on?" And they go, Evan's doing fairly well, but they suspected that he had Down syndrome. And the first thing the doctor says is, "Don't tell your wife."
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
I go back in there and I said everything. I tell Patty everything's okay. And I don't think I lasted 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I said, I have to tell her. So I go get the doctor, and we come back and we tell her. And again, it's very emotional. Yeah. We're both crying. It's just. And then I have to call my parents and tell my parents that yes, we have a son. He might at this time they couldn't really tell
if he had Down syndrome
because all people have morphic characteristics.
Oh, okay.
That's why.
That are visible.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean you have Down syndrome. So then they had to do genetic testing, and that was done at Children's Hospital.
Can we pause right there for a second? I'm
Sure.
so curious. What was your knowing at the time of what Down syndrome was?
Well, Patty was a special education teacher.
Oh, right.
So I knew what Down syndrome was, and I didn't know much more than that.
Well, and I wanted to take us back even a little further. So you were in Seattle having this baby, but you lived here. So was there a tip-off as to why you needed to go to Seattle?
Patty was having a lot of issues with the pregnancy. She was having contractions while she was pregnant. She was probably in the hospital here, I want to say 10 or 12 times.
Oh.
Sometimes we'd go to the hospital. Everything's okay. You can go back home. Other times she'd be there for 3 or 4 days. They back, it was 1989. At one point, they had a company from Arizona that put a belt around her that could detect contractions, and then she would, you put the phone down. It was very complicated, and it would send that data to the Arizona, and then they would call up and they would say, "No, you're doing fine," or "Go to the hospital."
Actually, that's quite amazing for that time.
Yeah, it is quite amazing for that time. And then a couple times during that period, she was actually either ambulanced over to Seattle or flown over.
So she'd already established some care over there.
Care over there.
Before.
And then when it came time that they couldn't stop it, or they thought they flew her over. Wow. I know one time they were going to fly her over, and so I went home to my parents. I got to say my parents and my family were very supportive. This is before Evan was born. And they were flying her over, and I went, and Patty and I had an old car. My dad handed me the car, keys to his car, and he gave me a credit card and said, "Go." So at that time, they didn't have helicopters. You got ambulanced up to the airport.
Oh, to Pangborn.
To Pangborn, and then flown over.
Oh, wow.
So, and it takes some time. There's some coordination going on there. And so I get the car, I get the thing, I pack a couple suitcases, and I drive to Seattle, and I get to labor and delivery at the UW. And I actually arrived before Patty got home.
Gosh.
Wow.
Oh,
So I walk into labor and delivery. Where's my wife?
Yeah, right.
Well, she's coming in an ambulance. So
You were making good time.
I was making, I might have been speeding a little bit.
Understandably.
Take us forward again. He's born. He's in the NICU. You called your parents.
I share the news, and this is nothing against my father. I want to stress that more importantly is my father born in 1925, and when kids with disabilities were born, they were often sent to an institution or something like that. And I don't think it was the first thing he said to me, but it came up shortly after, you can do something about this. And I don't think I reacted too much to that because I was pretty much in shock anyway. And so I don't hold that against my father. And jumping forward, Evan and my dad they were fast friends. He did everything for that.
So what was it like to navigate? Or what else would you like to share about sort of those very early days or times?
I know the NICU back then was a great big room, and there was lots of it was at UW, and it was kind of the hub for premature babies. Mm-hmm. So there was babies there from Alaska, all over.
Oh, my goodness.
Like from the whole region.
Of course.
For the whole region. So you get to know other parents and everything. And when you go into the NICU back then, you had to gown up, put a mask on. You had to scrub. You basically scrub in. You had to they had these orange sticks that you put under to clean your fingernails because you were reaching into the isolate and everything. And I knew nothing about raising a baby or anything like that. And so the nurses were fantastic. They walked us through. One story I'll tell, I know they chart everything. And Patty, as parents, you're able to look at the charts. And she sees parents, Frank and Patty Cohn, and it says unremarkable. Patty is furious. We're not unremarkable. We're here every day. We're doing everything.
What does that mean, unremarkable?
Unremarkable means you don't have a drug problem. You're not in prison.
Yeah.
You're normal.
Wow, what a relief.
Oh, my God. Interesting what term or what word they use to describe that.
But we got to know other parents, and then they suspected he had Down syndrome. So from that point forward he probably does have Down syndrome.
The assumption just moves forward.
Is Down syndrome.
So they can't do testing though right away, I'm assuming.
They probably can now. It was a genetic thing, and that back then it took weeks.
Okay.
Other things I remember, we gave him his first bath there. That was, they took him out of the isolate. Patty got to hold him. I think.
What size was he? We didn't ask. How much he weighed?
He was actually a little big for 11 and a half years. He was 3 pounds, 2 ounces.
Okay.
Wow.
Still tiny. And then he dropped weight. So he went down to about 2.8 pounds. Oh. So he was tiny. I have a picture, like the classic picture. I have a picture of his hand holding my little pinky, and it's just tiny. So I remember knowing absolutely nothing about babies.
Yeah, and must have been feeling a bit scared.
Yeah, a bit scared. And then they did an ultrasound on his heart. Again, they pulled us out and they took us into a room. Kids with Down syndrome often have holes in their heart, small holes in their heart. And according to the ultrasound at that time, he had holes in 2 chambers in his heart. It was inoperable. He might need a heart transplant. And, they sat us in a room. Again, we're just beyond controlling our emotions. And, what are we going to do? They did a couple of other ultrasounds. And it was more like a shadow on the heart. It wasn't a hole. He still had a hole in his heart, but it was in one of the chambers, I think the lower chamber. And it was like 1 or 2 microns. It was very small. And it was just something they needed to keep an eye on. So he never had the surgery because they can repair that. So
I think my blood pressure just went up. I'm on the edge of my seat with this story. And I know for you, it's so long ago. So it's like maybe I would imagine easier to talk about now.
He was there, I think, 44 days. The other thing that happened is I had a job here. I was doing a messaging service for attorneys. When that happened, I lined someone up to take my job over for me. And at some point, the person I was working for, he called me up and said, you have a choice. You can come back to work or you can stay there with your wife. So it wasn't a choice. Not only did we have a baby with special needs and that was premature, then I lost my job. So I remember this one time Patty stayed in Seattle, obviously, but I would occasionally drive to Wenatchee to pick up whatever like that. And this is one thing I really remember is driving home. I'm coming over Stevens Pass, and I'm crying. And I stop by the side of the road, and I think my life is over. I don't have a job. I looking back on it now, I think how selfish I was.
How old were you?
24, 25.
Goodness.
And scared. My life is over. I got this kid who's disabled, and what am I going to do, and like that and everything. And it wasn't too long after that. I kind of changed my mindset a little bit. It wasn't really about me. I was like, I have a family. I have to take care of my family. I'll do whatever I have to do, kind of thing. Not whatever I have to do, but, I have to pull it together, kind of.
Would you say that was an aha moment?
It was an aha moment. So,
How did you come to that mindset shift?
it was 37 years ago.
Yeah, right. But we do talk about that a lot on the show.
No,
because it is a very, resilient characteristic.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think we're conscious of those mindset shifts, and sometimes we're not. But it is interesting to just reflect there for a moment and ask yourself what you noticed about it.
I think looking back, I think the selfishness of it on my part, it's all about me. It's not all about
my
me.
poor life.
My poor life. And then the other aspect of that, Patty, like I said, Patty was a special education teacher. One of her first fears was that I was going to leave her. Because a lot of times she had seen so many families broken up by a child with a disability, whatever it is, not just Down syndrome. Yeah. The father would leave. And actually never even occurred to me. I was shocked. I told her that. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. But she shared that with you.
She did share that with me because she was visibly upset.
You were both having a separate experience and response, but also it sounds like you really communicated well enough to have a shared experience of like, what are we going to do? This is hard. But at some point you kind of rose to the occasion, so to speak.
We did. We've been married 41 years now, so I think we did. I'm not saying it was easy. There was a lot of pitfalls along the way. When he left the University of Washington, he got transferred, and they ambulanced him over, and he was here for 33 days. And he did fairly well. There was one incident where he turned blue, and they had to kind of resuscitate him. When he came home, he was on oxygen.
Oh, wow. Yeah, what was that like the first day you brought him home?
Most people have a baby and you're in the hospital a day or two and then they hand you the baby and you think, oh my God, what are we going to do? We had the fortune of Evan having 24-hour-a-day care for 77 days. And they said, well, he's ready to go home. He's going home on oxygen. And it was maybe the most frightening day of my life. Here you go. So
he's now in your care.
He's in our
Good
care,
luck.
and I don't. We had a list of instructions. He wasn't eating, so he was on oxygen, and we had to gavage feed him. That's where you put a tube down his throat or through his nose, and
with breast milk.
With breast milk, yeah. That was scary. The nurses taught us how to do that. Because, basically we both said, we're never going to do that. We'll bring him to the hospital. And they go, no, you got to do it. So we learned how to do it. And it actually became kind of convenient because trying to get him to take a bottle could be really difficult. But if you gavage feed him, you put this tube down his nose and you hold it up like that. And you feed him in 5 minutes. And it's
done.
But I was always checking. We were both always checking him because he was on oxygen. We had him in a crib and everything. And, you're worried about sudden infant death syndrome. He's so young. As a parent, you worry about everything. So
absolutely.
But I remember walking around, we take him for walks, put him in a stroller, and I would push the oxygen thing and the canister, and Patty would push the stroller.
Yeah, what was that like, kind of taking your news out into the community or your world?
Well, I think, a lot of people's first reaction when you have a child with a disability is they say they're sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think Patty and I tried to say, we don't want you to say you're sorry. We have a child. He's alive. He's driving. He's small and everything. So that's another thing I did learn is when someone has a child that has a disability or a problem, you congratulate them.
Yes, like any other.
Unless it's very, unless it's very severe or something like, or they know the child's going to die. But if they have a child that's living and everything, it's like, it's a gift.
Please celebrate with us.
Celebrate with us. So, and my friends, and again, my friends and family were very, very supportive. So
your dad's initial comment, like that attitude didn't continue. Your family's kind of rallied.
He might have kept it to himself, but as Evan got older and he got to interact with him more, there was no way that he was part of the household. Yeah.
So how did life kind of continue? What were some of the early challenges or bright spots you remember?
Well, Patty was working. I was home. It was every day. It was like everything's about Evan. It's, basically keeping him alive, making sure he's okay. There were doctor appointments all the time. Evan's doctor was Dr. Jansen, who was at the clinic. He was fantastic. Every time we had an issue, we could call the clinic and they would see him and everything. And he'd worked with preemies. It was kids with Down syndrome typically have low muscle tone.
Right.
So they can have digestion issues. And then his lungs were a constant worry because lungs in premature babies aren't developed, obviously, and they're kind of sticky. There was more digestion problems with Evan, and he got sick a lot, and he was on antibiotics a lot, which...
Is this when he was already school age?
No, this is when he was very
yeah.
school age,
Okay.
and through school age, he got sick. He had a lot of colds and everything like that. So yeah, it was difficult managing. And then so when you're on antibiotics all the time, hard on it, and then again, it's just kind of an ongoing cycle. So,
and that was in the time when they really gave antibiotics to kids just constantly.
They did.
Now it's a little bit of a different mindset, I think.
The other thing is, at some point, we got his hearing tested. They told us that he didn't have eardrums.
Oh.
I was crying in the doctor's office. You can't hear it. It's just,
How old was Evan at that time, roughly?
He was around 2-ish.
Okay.
And I remember that they told us he didn't have eardrums. And finally, the doctor said, well... He was an old doctor. He was my ear doctor when I was a kid. He goes, I think he doesn't. So we took him up to the hospital, and they did a minor procedure look, and they were very, very small.
Oh, okay.
So but for a while, he had to wear a bone conduction hearing aid, and he hated it because he could hear.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's like, what is
maybe
this
it was
about?
echoing inside his head or something like that.
Gosh.
Wow, that would be overwhelming.
And then before that, they took his throat was very tiny, and he had large tonsils, so they took his tonsils and adenoids out. And I remember that because Patty was at high school, and the doctor kept telling me, it's like an hour. You wait in the waiting room, I'll come out and tell you.
Sure.
So I'm waiting in the waiting room. It's an hour. It's an hour and a half. It's 2 hours. The doctor comes out. I think Evan's around 2 years old at this time. And they said his airway collapsed. But we got it back. We got it. And he's in the intensive care unit at Central Washington Hospital. So Dr. Eisert, I remember Dr. Eisert's there, and I'm watching his oxygen stat numbers, and they're like at 95. Mm-hmm. And about every 20 minutes, it drops a point. Mm-hmm. Dr. Eisert looks at me and he goes, at a certain point, when it drops below a certain number, they send him to Seattle.
Sure.
He goes, do you think we should send him to Seattle? And I just said, yes. It's just like, I appreciate the doctor asking me, but I don't really have any say in this. But, yeah. So they send him to Seattle. He goes to Children's. They pump him full of steroids to get the swelling down in his throat. And he's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine.
He's fine. So.
Oh, that's
because he just couldn't breathe.
He couldn't breathe, because the air. I don't know if the airway actually collapsed, but it closed up, and so.
And all this time, Patty was just at work.
She was at work. I called her. I called her as soon as the doctor came out, like that. So, but I've never seen a doctor. He came out and he was covered in sweat and wringing his hands. And
sure,
everything. So,
those things you just won't forget, will you?
I will not forget those.
Yeah.
So.
I was just I'm just amazed by this story that this little body has gone through so much and still thrived. Still just kept going. Wow.
It really is true.
Yeah.
What a miracle.
Yeah, it is kind of a miracle.
Yeah.
So. And then he was in special education. So he did well at school. I took him to school, dropped him off, and picked him up, and he always, most of the time, always seemed happy and everything like that. So, but every once in a while, the school would call us up, and he got sick or something. I'd rush to the school. That was fairly common too. Yeah. So, but those were mostly minor incidents. One time when he was older, he was at Castle Rock here in Wenatchee. That's next to Washington. And that was the special education school at that time. Okay. And one time I went there and Again, the teacher was kind of flustered and everything, and Evan had broken out of school and was running down the street.
Oh my gosh.
And someone spotted him and called the police
Yeah.
and got him back. So
He was a runaway.
he was a runaway.
Oh my gosh.
On a
Did
mission.
what was it like to try and find out what was wrong? If Evan was upset or, in terms of like verbal skills or emotional skills, like what was it like for him?
Well, Evan's pretty much nonverbal. If you ask him a question, almost always respond in the affirmative because he's learned if I say yes or yeah, mom and dad smile. So with Evan, and I don't know if it's with all kids with Down syndrome, his emotions are pretty much right on the surface.
Okay.
So when he's happy, you know when he's sad, you know when he's not feeling well. He has a particular face. His lips kind of make an O shape, and you can tell he's not happy. So, and I think with him, I've learned to read. I guess they call them micro expressions. Patty and I have both learned to read those.
Oh,
And
sure.
I don't think I can do it on you or anyone else, but I can do it with Evan. I can tell. I can tell within very quickly, pretty much how he's feeling.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'd love to hear a little bit, Frank, about what your life has been like as parent and sounds like primary caregiver for a lot of his life.
yes, I was his primary caregiver. I did work at the county and I worked at the hospital. My mom watched Evan a lot, and she loved that. That was a gift to also because I have my mom, because that allowed me to work. And back then, especially when we worked at the county, if Evan got sick or something, the school would call me up or my mom would call me up, and I would have to leave work. And the people I worked for were very good. They would let me go. I don't think that would happen now. I think I would have been let go because I was absent a lot because I had to go home, and then I had to take him home or take him to the doctor. So, again, there was a lot of doctor visits.
Do you remember what it was like to kind of make that decision in your relationship, or how did that even come about? You kind of identified as the primary stay-at-home.
Patty's a teacher. She had a better job.
Okay, gotcha.
And she could insure us all.
Yes.
It was just kind of the way it'd have to be.
It made sense.
It made sense. And she'd been a teacher. She was well established here. Again, my jobs were sporadic. I worked at the hospital. I worked at the county, and then I got laid off in 2009. And after 2009, I'll just stay home because at that time I was around 50 years old. I didn't really want to go looking for another job.
Sure.
And financially, we were okay. Patty could work. I could stay home. It kind of made sense.
Yeah.
In hindsight, I'm just wondering, since Evan was the first child and you didn't know any different, maybe that was a blessing.
Yeah, it was, Erin came along 2 years later.
Yeah, let's talk about Erin.
Yeah. And she was a little bit early. I think Patty and her got flown to, while she was pregnant. I think Patty maybe 1 or 2 trips to Seattle.
Oh, okay.
So she was born at 36 weeks.
So before you even go any farther, you two decided you wanted another baby and that this was a go, yeah?
We decided we wanted another baby.
That's a big decision.
It was a big decision.
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
Patty got pregnant. If you've had one kid with a disability, there's a higher incidence of this.
Sure.
Oh, wow.
So there was blood test.
I was going to ask if you did the testing.
Funny story, when Patty was in the hospital with Evan, it was the UW. It was a teaching hospital. So they did an amniocentesis. I think they can do that with a blood test now. At that time, they took a great big needle.
Yes, I've heard about those tests.
Makes me
And
just
Stick it in the woman's belly.
And so it's a teaching hospital. So all the medical students are around my wife, and they got an ultrasound machine because they're looking for a window so they won't hit the baby. And this is with Evan.
How many weeks pregnant, roughly?
Well, this was before, so it was like 30 weeks maybe.
Okay.
So they find the window, and then one of the students slowly pushes this needle into my wife and pulls a little fluid out. Thank God it wasn't me, kind of thing. When she was pregnant with Erin, we went to the UW because they were going to do an amnio see if Erin had any genetic markers or anything like that. So anyway, the doctor goes and goes, well, we'll do an amnio. He had done 10,000 amnios. He doesn't even get the ultrasound. He just puts his hand on Patty's belly, feels around a little bit, and he goes, oh, here's a good spot. He takes that needle, boom, in and out like that. I mean, not 2 seconds.
Wow.
Patty, I don't want to say she barely felt it. I'm sure she felt it, but it wasn't the slow needle being pushed into her.
Makes me
it was
cringe.
it was very quick.
And the results came back.
Results came back. Aaron obviously didn't have Down syndrome or any other traits.
And so you knew that at the time, as soon as those results came back.
We knew right away.
That must have been a big relief.
That was a huge relief. Then Aaron was born, and when we got to the hospital, we had this old car, and we had Evan in a car seat in the back.
So how old was Evan?
He was 2.5. So he's in the back of the car, and we bring in this new baby, and Evan just loses it.
Oh, yeah. What is this?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
how long did it take him to sort of
it didn't take very long.
Okay.
That was a bit weird because as soon as we put Aaron in the car, it was just like, what have you done?
What store have you been into? How much did you pay for that?
What were you thinking? Yeah, so another thing I remember about Evan being young, at that time there was a support group for parents with kids with disabilities. Yeah. You go there and you basically tell your story. And the one thing I took from that was Patty and I had it pretty easy.
Wow. Perspective.
We had a kid with Down syndrome was the most common genetic disability. You knew a lot about Down syndrome. There was tons of information. There's organizations about Down syndrome. And so you can get all this information. And
this was a group here in Wenatchee.
Yeah. But there was kids that they had a genetic disability, maybe only 5 people in the United States have. And in that regard, we were lucky, in a lot of ways, because we had a lot of information.
Did you find anything else about that group supportive?
Oh, it was very supportive. You're always, wow, you have it tough. I have it less tough. And, I feel for you. You could really feel empathy for these people because they were struggling. I guess struggling is a good word, but they were getting through it.
And did that help you feel less alone as well?
It absolutely helped us feel less alone. Nice. You're not the only one out there. And then you meet, there was another group at the time, it's still Upper Valley Connection. They paired us with a family that had their son had Down syndrome. So we could interact with them, and that was great. And
nice.
What a great tool. My goodness.
It's like real peer support matching.
And so, they could show us the map of where this was going.
Okay, because he was an older kid.
He was older.
I love that. And you said that resource still exists, you think?
Upper Valley Connection is still here. I don't know that they're matching up parents. I'm removed from that now. So
right. Because Evan is now 37 years old.
He was 37 years old. Yeah. But I remember they would have functions where we'd get together. There would be like a potluck or something like that. So the kids could play.
I know you've been involved with Special Olympics. Just mentioned this group. Like you did Run Wenatchee for a while.
We did Run Wenatchee. Evan was part of that. We did Run Wenatchee. Mm-hmm. I want to say we've always had Evan in the community. I don't look at him as someone that has Down syndrome. I mean, I know he has Down syndrome. I don't look at him that way. He's my son. So I go into stores. I don't think about that. Being in the community, I've never had anyone here look at him strange. Small kids look at him. Very small kids look at him differently because he looks a little different. Yeah. And that doesn't bother us at all. That's just, that's curiosity or something. We were on a vacation one time. We were going through Wyoming. We walked into a restaurant with Evan holding his hand, and it was like out of a movie. People, it was like, everyone set down their plates and you hear this thing, and then it's like dead silence, and they're all staring at us. And maybe, looking back, maybe they were looking at us because we didn't look like people from Wyoming or something. Or we were driving an Altima. We didn't have a truck. I don't know. Nothing against
Who's
people.
Who's this family in a sedan?
But it was kind of like that. It was like people brought spoons up and stopped, and the door opened, and we walked in. I remember it was kind of, it was like, so. Community-wise here, he's always
just integrated. It sounds
he's integrated with his health. It was very smooth. When he was at school, there was a couple of incidents at school where kids would make fun, maybe of Evan or like that, but it was dealt with. So
Yeah.
But for the most part, school was a good thing. I think the special teachers that raised Evan were a little wary of us because Patty was a teacher and she was a special
Right.
education teacher.
An expert.
She was an expert in this. And,
Yeah.
We kind of alleviated their stress about that. Said, we're placing our child in your hands and teaching you. We think you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
That's like that.
Nice. I'm sure you did. Yeah.
I mean, because it was the first time you're going through all these experiences. So you probably wouldn't have come off as a know-it-all. I mean, even with her.
The only thing I remember is a lot of people would say, "Oh, Patty is a special education teacher, so she knows all about this." Well, she knows how to teach kids with disabilities. She doesn't know how to raise kids with disabilities. And nothing
different.
against Patty. That's not an insult to my wife.
No, not at all. Well, it also could be dismissive for support, right? Like, oh, you're an expert. You don't need extra support. But that's not true either.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Probably gave her a vast perspective on what it's like from the parent point of view.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about you a little more, Frank. I think it's just would be unique to hear if on your journey from sort of that very beginning point, you talk about the poor me moment, side of the, Stephen's Pass when you pull over and you're like, oh my gosh, my life. And then you say you sort of have a mindset reset. In the journey since then, would you say there's been other just challenges for you in having time for yourself or developing hobbies or having
social time
yourself?
My life is, so I guess some people would find it boring. With Evan, everything for the last 20 years has been about routine. It's almost like Groundhog Day at our house, I want to say. It's like get up and try to make the day like the day before if it was a good day. So that means you're making breakfast, making lunch, watching SpongeBob at a certain time, going to bed at a certain time. We kind of live in a bubble. Our family lives in a bubble because it's this routine. And I don't mind that routine. I don't get bored with that routine. I look forward to waking up and seeing my son and seeing Evan every morning. I get a hug. I'll be 67 in a few days. Every day I get this person who smiles at me, gives me a hug all the time. And that's enough to get me through the day. The other part of that is we all tell ourselves when you have kids, I'll never betray them. But at some point, you're going to betray them through anger or something like that. And I try to eliminate those things. Like this is a small thing. Evan is part of his OCD. If you give him a shirt and it has threads on it, he'll take that shirt apart. And this might sound like a minor thing to a lot of people, but at some point it kind of infuriated me. Don't pull your shirt apart. Keep your shirt. If you get mad at Evan, again, he reacts to anger or happiness or anything like that. So I try to eliminate things that make me angry and stupid things that make me angry. That's
like in the world.
It's a shirt. I can get him another shirt, like that. And now when we buy him T-shirts because he sleeps in a T-shirt, we just say, we just assume they're disposable now. When they get at a certain point, we throw them away. We get out another one. That helps me a lot. It's just like because there's no reason to get mad at him for something like that. It's it's part of him. I don't want to give him a pill to control that, or medication. And I don't think therapy is going to work because he's pretty much nonverbal. The other thing is when I take him, if he has to go to the emergency room, which he's had to go a few times for digestive issues or anything like that, whenever you take a nonverbal person to the emergency room and the doctor starts asking you questions, first thing I say to the doctor, any question you ask him, he'll respond in yes, unless he's really in pain or something like that. But he can't tell you what's wrong with him.
No.
So if he has a stomach ache, they have to test him to see if he has an appendicitis or a perforation. Anytime with an intestinal issue, Evan gets a CAT scan and an X-ray. He's constipated. That's usually what it is.
Right.
So
you brought up that word betrayal, and it took me to a scene in my life with my daughter who found out through her cousin in our car as we're driving them all to an event that Santa Claus did not exist. And that was a huge betrayal that we put on our daughter. And so I don't know if you would recognize anything like that where, he felt betrayed by you.
I'm sure Evan has felt betrayed by me and maybe Patty at some point, but he's not going to verbalize that. He's going to, the way you're going to know that is he's going to close up.
So not acting out.
He rarely acted out.
Yeah.
He barely acted, except that time when he ran away from school. But kind of turns within on himself like that, and not in a harmful way. But and then as a parent, you just feel like, oh, I just yelled at a kid with Down syndrome. What kind of monster am I?
But it's bound to happen.
It is bound to happen.
It's so
It
normal.
is bound to happen. Yeah. It is. No, it's absolutely bound to happen. So.
I felt the same caregiving for my mom in her late 80s. It's like I was angry.
You're
because
angry.
it's painful.
Exactly.
Usually for me, if I was angry, there was grief. I was upset about feeling sad or helpless. That's a big one. Have you had that experience?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of helplessness. Like I said, I can read his expressions most of the time, but there are occasions where he wants something or he's asking for something, and he does a hand gesture. He kind of does this. This hand gesture can mean I want food. I want this movie. I want. It's been tough at times figuring out what that is.
Sure.
Usually it's something minor. Usually he sees a SpongeBob thing on the TV or wants that, and we figure it out.
Yeah, you have to really be a detective and read him and his body language and his micro
expressions.
So. In terms of learning and growth, Frank, I'm curious what you would say that you have learned about yourself, or maybe you've unlearned something just from being Evan's dad and having this life experience.
I've learned not to kind of project into the future. I think I said it's kind of a worst case scenario thing, and that's why I need to unlearn that. When he was first born and when this started, I could only see gloom and doom, and it's been the total opposite of that. And I think I've learned that I got to continue that with other aspects of my life too. So. I try and take a little more positive outlook on life.
Yeah, that's not easy.
It isn't easy, but if you sit and think about it a little bit, it can make things better.
I was just going to ask, do you have sort of a process when you catch yourself maybe in the dooming stage where you say, oh, wait a minute, I can...
Well, I do think back to having Evan being born in such the manner that he was. It was kind of a pivotal thing. So it's easy to go back to that and say, this is what happened. This is what didn't happen. So
yeah. So you just remember.
I just remember, yeah. So, and maybe not stress about everything else in the world,
Yeah, that's so true. We all suffer from that. I think it's just a human mind condition.
It is.
And in some ways, we're so programmed to plan our life, lay it out and plan the day, and we want to be totally in the know about what's going to happen.
I
all
think
the time.
I agree. I think very few people. I mean, I think we all have kind of a plan for what we want to do in our lives like that, and it rarely turns out that way. That's what I think. And for some people, it probably does, and that's great. But for most of us, it doesn't.
It just turns out.
It turns out.
And I love this phrase. I learned this in one of my mindfulness programs. It has already turned out. Like
Absolutely.
This moment, it's turned out.
It's turned out.
Like stop waiting for it to turn out.
Yeah, I agree.
Because our life is only right now.
I do remember, there's one other part of it. I remember I used to work as an assistant in a special needs class, and Evan was probably 4 or 5, and there was a parent in there, and we got along and everything, and I said, what's your plan? Because I want to know what her plan was, and her plan was, she told me, I plan to live forever. That's what her plan was. And I think she was kind of joking, but I think she wasn't kind of joking because I have to take care of this child of mine, and that was another kind of a watershed moment.
How did that land with you?
Well, everyone was young, and I thought, well, I'm young too. I'll just, basically, that's my plan. But now we've put things written down on paper, our wills and such,
right?
That Evan's going to be taken care of, and you have to do that.
much different plans in a sense because you're 67.
Yeah.
Happy
Thank you for
birthday,
that.
by the way. Did you need that reminder? No, congratulations.
Oh, well, thank you.
We don't all get that far.
No, that's true.
We ask everyone on the show at some point, sort of, what does wellness mean to you? Is just what does it mean to live a good life, to be content? Sort of that broadest version of what it means to be well and live well.
Well, it might be a boring answer, but I think in a lot of ways, wellness is stability. Maybe with Evan, it's a lot of it is routine, doing the same thing every day. Every day, I think I mentioned Groundhog Day. It's kind of like that, or we kind of live in this bubble. And my goal for that is to make the day as good as the last day. So it's so. And again, it might not be the most exciting life, but it is stable, and I do have well-being like that.
Well, I was going to say, what does stability offer? It offers us this foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah, from which we can move and be creative. And
it changes, but it's just like, you go a little bit out of your routine, out of the rut, so to speak. But it's kind of like, that's okay. And you just, as long as you kind of get back to what's normal to you.
So stability is for you, but it's also for Evan, and it's for
it's for Evan.
It's for the whole family.
Yeah. I don't want Evan to feel like he's a guest in the house. I want him to feel like he's part of the family, that he doesn't have to think about, that he feels safe and secure. Maybe he's not even aware of that, but he doesn't have to be.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and I think we all actually, when we are in loving relationships, not all family is loving relationships, but when we have that, I think that's one of the things that we strive to provide to each other for those we love.
Yes.
Places where they don't have to question everything, especially our safety. You have your flow.
We have the flow, exactly.
Yeah, and almost like that flow is that stability. Would you say that there is any connection between not projecting or being overly negative and this sort of sense of stability?
I'm sure they do. I don't know if I have the answer for that.
Yeah. That part just so curious to me. And we talk a lot on the show with other folks about how our wellness, so your sense of stability and how you put great value on that, gets shaped, and it has gotten shaped through the life that you have lived.
And Evan has changed that. You have a child with special needs or a disability, and it's not about your life. It's about his life. It's about his routine. And I've accepted that, and I don't regret it. It's something I tell that to a lot of people is, we're on Evan's schedule, when he gets up and when he eats a meal, when he goes to bed, what he watches on TV. Like I say, I watch a lot of SpongeBob.
Right.
So, and
not of your choosing necessarily.
Well, not of my choosing, but I don't really mind it.
Yeah.
It's part of the routine, I guess, so to speak. But it's more that we have a family unit and everything, but he rules that unit, and not in a he's probably not aware of it. It's just something. It's his day, This is how my day goes. Yeah. This is what Dad does. This is what Mom does.
Yeah.
And
I think our learning, our life shapes us, and we often have these beliefs or narratives or strong ideas that I think sometimes just stay beneath the surface, and it takes maybe someone like me asking you these questions.
No, that's good. And again, it goes. It's most of the time it goes that way. There are things that come up that absolutely rattle that routine, but the main thing is to try to get back to it.
Yeah. Would you say that there has even been something that you've learned that feels wise?
I don't know if this is the right answer, but I think both my kids have made me a better person from my perspective. I'm not as quick to anger now. If Evan struggles, that's something I try to put myself in his shoes a little bit. I can't do that. I'd love to know what he's thinking sometime because he doesn't talk very much. And Patty and I often go about, I wonder what he's thinking right now. But when we do something funny or something happens, but if he's struggling at even like a puzzle or something like that, one time I got a little angry with him because I go, you pick the sides, we're doing a jigsaw puzzle, and you do this, you pick the sides with the flat edge so we can do the outside of the puzzle. And he really struggled with that. And I got frustrated with him for that. And then, then I think, is that something to get angry at him about? No, it's not something to get angry about. That because that he perceives it differently.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the flat side? He can't ask me that. But
Let
it
it
absolutely
go.
didn't connect with him, and that was on me. That wasn't on him.
It's a good moment for you, I guess, to recognize, oh, it's me. I have an agenda here. It's not working out.
I don't know if that's wisdom or not, but that's so.
Well, I think it is in the sense that you have really learned to sort of read and deepen your understanding about the needs of your son. And it sounds like there's a lot of learning in that category.
There's a lot of learning, and I'm still learning.
Yeah, right. Yeah, thanks for
I think
that.
we all are still learning. So
yeah, it's so true. What is Evan's wisdom? What do you think that's wise in him?
Well, I think he sees the world differently, and I don't know if it's his wisdom, but I wish people could learn. If you're nice to someone, like you're nice to Evan, he responds. He gives you a hug, or he smiles at you like that, and that's all you have to do. It's not a big thing. It's just like. Maybe I mentioned this, but we had the boyfriend test.
Yes.
if Evan liked Aaron's boyfriend, a thumbs up. But he wouldn't lash out or anything. But it was like, he would immediately go back to his room if a certain boy came over or something like that.
Right.
I think that happened once or twice. It didn't happen too often, but it was just that was kind of.
It was the litmus test.
It was the litmus test. Thank you.
But it sounds like you're kind of pointing to just this very, very humble kindness.
It's just kindness.
Yeah. And that is a wisdom.
And it gets reciprocated.
It's contagious.
It is contagious.
We could pause there more often as humans.
Yeah. One more thing. I remember Evan was in a music class. He was 3 years old. And this woman, the teacher sang a song called The Magic Penny. I still remember this. Have you ever heard it?
No.
It's a magic penny. It was like, the more you give it away, the more you get in return.
Oh.
Like you give it away, you get back. And I've always remembered that.
Is there anything that you would give as support or advice to any new or young or expecting parents of kids with special needs?
I would say you're not alone. You might feel alone, but there is help out there. And whether it's family or friends, I can't thank my family and friends enough for all the support I've given, either monetary or just emotional support.
One thing I'm remembering back that you said earlier when you were telling us you had just brought Evan home and you were taking him out in stroller walks and you were pushing the oxygen tank and Patty was pushing the stroller. And I was asking about the response that you were getting from people. And you were saying how oftentimes when a special needs child is born, people say they're sorry.
Yes.
And how you kind of did some coaching with people like, please just say congratulations.
Just say congratulations. Yeah. And I think, I don't know that we so much coach people, but we did get it out there that people were.
You can be happy for us.
You can be happy for us.
Yeah.
Be happy for us. So.
And I actually think that's a supportive thing too. If I was imagining myself as a new mother with a special needs child in any way, I think that would be supportive to hear. Like you can say that to people, like, let's be happy.
Well, yeah, and I think that, and if you say that to someone and they say, it doesn't hurt to try.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the wrong thing to say, but if you get that, if you can respond to that and say, well, my life is miserable right now. Well, maybe it's going to get better, or hopefully it's going to get better. What can I do to help?
Yes, it opens a conversation.
It opens a conversation. So, all new parents are under stress anyway.
Of course.
So they might lash out or respond negatively to that. Maybe don't take it so personally. Maybe you're thinking, well, I tried to help. At least you tried to help, and maybe they'll call you later.
Yeah, and keep asking. Ask them again. Anything else you want to share before we close?
I really enjoyed this experience. It was nice. I haven't talked about this in a long, long time because my friends have heard the story multiple times. It was nice to open up about this and look back on it and mostly laugh about it and smile about it. So.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, no doubt you will make others laugh and smile, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Mary.
Frank.
Live Well, Be Wise is produced and recorded by Kari Lyons Price and yours truly, Dorinda Carlson. Our music is titled Inside You by Leva, a musician and composer at Lemon Music Studio, who we happily found on pixabay.com. Our circle of sharing has concluded for today, but we'd like to give a great gratitude to you, my friend, for listening, for tuning in, maybe even tapping into that understanding and compassion and the knowing within that tells us we're not alone in our own stories. So maybe you would like to share one of your own, or know a friend or a mentor or a teacher, someone you admire that has an extraordinary and inspirational story. We all have stories. The more we share, the more we know we're not alone. And don't be shy to reach out to connect in other ways, too. Of course, we'd love for you to subscribe and also give feedback. We wouldn't be here without you. We appreciate you. Live well, be wise.